This video is going to be a very big surprise for a lot of you because I'm sure a lot of you guys thought that I was done with Gilmore Girls, that I'm not going to review it season by season by season, but guess what? I am. Thank you guys for your patience, for waiting so long for this to come out. The wait is over. Let's discuss Gilmore Girls Season 2. Sierra loves TV. Yes, I made a theme song so that I can talk about all my favorite shows. Oh yeah! And this is just your disclaimer that this is not me talking about any of the actors themselves, but more so their characters. Please do not attack me in the comments. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, even those who disagree with me. But let's keep it friendly. Alright, let's get started with the show. Gilmore Girls Season 2 aired October 9th, 2001, with 22 episodes in the season. In episode 1, Lorelai is looking at wedding magazines and tells Luke that she's engaged. Rory goes to Lane's, who thinks that she's being shipped to Korea. Lorelai decides to accept Max's proposal, and Dean goes to dinner. Some opinions about this episode. Luke was wrong for his delivery, but the questions were right. It's one of those things where it's just really complex. It's so interesting that in episode 21 of season 1, Rory says she loves Dean for the reason that I already mentioned. Then Lorelai does the same thing in episode 1 of season 2. I love how Suki loves food just like I do.
It's not really a smoky taste. It's a certain, it's kind of like a, it's got like this boom, zap kind of taste. Don't you think? What would you call that flavor?
Lightning-y?
Like I could go on and on and on about seasoning and vegetable oil. That was a joke. Anyway, Dean is so overkill with all the kissing he tries to sneak and do with Rory. I will not be spoken to like that at my house. Like, what did she say that was wrong? Lorelai's right. He was having flashbacks to when she was younger, but Lorelai didn't end up where she was because of Christopher, and she didn't leave because of Christopher. They just can't accept the part that they played in what happened. I hate that Luke has to watch her with someone else. In episode 2, Lorelai still hasn't told Emily and Richard about getting engaged, and when she does end up telling Emily, Emily pretty much just brushes her off. Rory goes to build a house to get something extracurricular related onto her transcript. Paris tells Rory that she needs more than good grades to get into Harvard. Dean and Rory end up having like this really stupid, childish fight that I end up actually discussing in my Why Everybody Hates Dean Forrester video. She ends up making up with him. In this episode, Rory's baby voice is so prominent. I love Madeline. That is all. Lane's new beau, Henry Cho, asks about Lane. Lane leaves for the summer, and Jackson wants to move in with Suki. In episode 3, Max is staying over for the first time, and Lorelai has trouble with Max sleeping over. Max's questions were natural, but Lorelai is also right. Rory is her kid. Ultimately, what she decides will be the rule. I understand his frustration, but knowing Lorelai, like, it makes sense why she feels the way that she does. Nothing really happens with Rory in this episode, except the scene with Dean in the beginning. I love how Dean gives Max a crash course into how the girls operate. I watch movies and TV very similar to how Rory and Lorelai do. Lorelai's freak out about Max kind of makes sense to me because it feels like, I kind of think I explained this before in a different video, but Lorelai is getting closer and closer to happiness, and so she's doing what Lorelai does, which is running away. And Rory and Lorelai do have a secret clubhouse. Their relationship is like a world of its own. Taylor and Luke's rivalry is brewing. I'm so full, why did you let me eat so much is something that I say often. I like the town gatherings. Lorelai choosing a drag club as her bachelorette party location is so me. I love Long Island iced teas. The scene with them talking about their experiences before their wedding is meant to say Lorelai doesn't feel that way. Lorelai is not in love with Max. The way Lorelai talks on the phone when she talks to Christopher is so relatable because me. She's calling Christopher because she feels unsure of herself, and Christopher is one of the few people who knows her romantically and who she is as a person. She's looking for a clue as to whether she's doing the right thing. Think about it. She has a deep reputation of bolting from a guy. Suki mentioned it in an earlier episode in episode 1. Her mother mentions it constantly, and even Rory has noticed it, and now Christopher. She's trying not to be the girl who runs from happiness, and she's having a hard time with it. She says he's a great guy to remind herself that he's a great guy and that everything that she's doing is what's supposed to happen because she feels unsure. In this episode, Lorelai talks to Rory in the kitchen about a time where she tried to flip the calendar back. I didn't do that, but once I got under my covers when I was 6 and taped a note on top of my covers for my mom to read when she tried to wake me up for school that said, "Hibernating, do not disturb," and Luke makes Lorelai a huppa. In episode 4, the girls go to a B&B. B&B, and Rory goes on a Harvard tour with Lorelai. Off rip, one of the things I noticed about this episode was another thing where I related to Lorelai. I love Highway to Hell. Suki naming the cake is so me. She named it Clyde. It bugged me so bad that Sammy, the gray cat, was on the steps and she said that he was never on the steps. Listen, it was too many flowers, in my opinion. I hate chit chat too. I don't blame Lorelai for running back upstairs. I don't think that Rory and Lorelai's best friend type relationship was always like that. I think it was recently established between them that they would have that dynamic based off of the way they talk. And the people at the B&B, like, why are y'all being so nosy? I've been in that situation so many times. Like, listen, I just have the face. I don't know what it is about my face or like my energy or what it is. Rory saying this is Harvard is me talking about my favorite shows. This is the episode where Lorelai begins making plans about opening her own inn. At the end, Lorelai does go back to talking about why she was staring at the photo. Like, if you listen to what she's saying, she's basically saying she's thinking about what could have been, and it was just about her like reflecting on her life. But that girl does look a lot like Emily. In episode 5, Lorelai tries to advise Luke on dealing with Jess. Jess is Luke's nephew. She hosts a party to welcome Jess. Paris is on Rory's case, and then Rory runs into Max, and Rory meets Jess. This is the beginning of a beautiful love story that ends in tragedy. Romeo and Juliet? Anyway, Lane is collecting music and Jess is coming to stay with Luke. Paris is still beefing with Rory. This is one of those episodes where I kept thinking to myself, how do people still act like Lorelai is a bad mom? She literally tells Rory, don't avoid Max just because they broke up. And she's putting her own personal feelings aside. Like, she's being respectful of the fact that that's still her teacher. I love Suki's attention to detail when it comes to food. I love how Rory isn't intimidated by Jess's demeanor. I understand both perspectives from Lorelai and Jess. I don't agree with him asking her if she was sleeping with him. And then she turns around and she tries to talk to Luke about it, and Luke was a jerk to her instead of just openly saying, hey, sorry my nephew was a complete jerk to you. That was not one of Luke's best moments. But then quickly his opinion changes because then he pushes Jess into the lake. I agree with Luke about jam hands. Why are kids' fingers always I don't know, in my experience with children, their fingers are always in something sticky or they have something sticky. And don't get me started on the kids that have the dried booger crust. Ugh. God, it's enough to make me throw up. Everybody who's been watching my channel for a while, you already know I'm a big literati shipper. And there's a lot to get into with them, even more than I've already talked about. So I cannot wait to really pick this apart and talk about Rory and Jess. In episode 6, Rory attends a coming out ball, and Lorelai asks Christopher to go to the ball with Rory. We begin the episode with Emily and Richard bickering. For people who keep saying Lorelai set Rory up with unrealistic expectations, Rory is aware of how the outside world can be when she literally says it at Luke's in this episode. Emily acts like she doesn't understand Lorelai's humor, but she has a similar humor style, like when she's at the DAR meeting and she says,
the usual, clean this, cook that, sacrifice a virgin on your way out.
Emily wants Rory to participate in the debutante ball. Richard's stress from work has been bubbling since the Christmas episode last season, but I gotta say, I really hate how he talks to Emily in this episode because while I may not always agree with what she's doing, I do believe that she's really the glue that holds them together. In episode 7, Chilton wants Rory and Lorelai to be more involved. Lorelai enters a fashion show with the other Chilton moms, and Chilton wants Rory to be more social. Rory meets Francie and is kidnapped by the Puffs, a secret sorority at Chilton. I like that song by Barry Manilow. The intro is so classic Gilmore. I love when they have those slow intros. This is the first real mention of Lorelai's Jeep problems. Also, why are they bothering Rory about being social? Some people just aren't that social. I'm not. I just hate that they're so concerned all of a sudden. I hate stuffy people. And look at how happy Paris is when she finally gets to sit with them. I think Paris wanting to get into Harvard comes from the absolute ridicule that she would get from her family if she wasn't accepted in. Look at the contrast between how Paris's mom didn't even prepare her versus how Lorelai did. Rory was so right. I was really proud of her for standing up for herself. That's the kind of kid that Lorelai raised. In episode 8, Lorelai tries to make plans on the inn and has to tell Mia, the inn owner, that she's leaving the inn to open her own. And Rory sits for a painting. Jess is in this episode. They find out Fran, who owns Weston's Bakery, owns the inn that they want. I don't understand why she wouldn't just sell it. It was literally just sitting there collecting dust. The town meeting was hilarious. And this is the episode where the town troubadour shows up. I get why Suki is upset. I also understand that Lorelai is more than likely having a trauma response. But I really understand how Suki feels. I love how Rory stands up to Jess. Jess meets Dean in this episode, and Emily shows up at the end to meet Mia. When you watch stuff like this with Emily, it does kind of make you feel a little bit sad for her because it's dang, she truly just cannot connect with Lorelai no matter what angle she tries to look at it from, because she's so stuck in her ways. And she has this anger towards Mia. I mean, I feel like I kind of get it a little bit, but then also I'm like, Mia took care of Lorelai and made sure that she was okay. In episode 9, I feel like this was one of those episodes where like it was supposed to be more focused on Rory, because Lorelai has this weird storyline about how she's dating a guy from her business class and she finds out that he's younger than her. Like, I don't know. Rory's in a play with Paris for school. Tristan is in her group and she struggles to tell Dean about their kiss. I like how Rory tries to help Lane be able to talk to her secret crush. I love Brad. I mean, like, I feel like he just gets so much hate, and I really like, he's one of those characters that is not amongst the main characters, but he is really funny to me, and I love his character. Tristan leaves from military school after stealing money out of a safe. I love that before he goes, he makes sure to actually say bye to Rory. And Suki is totally right about Luke. So the last episode we are going to discuss is episode 10. This is the Brace Bridge dinner episode. This is a really big, like, iconic Gilmore Girls episode. If you're not actually a fan of the show yourself and you're just watching one of my videos now, like, you know how some shows have episodes that are more memorable than others? This is just one of those. In this episode, Lorelai and Rory enter a snowman contest, and Christopher calls wanting Rory to come spend some time with him. I love the Brace Bridge dinner episode. It's something about it. It's just so wholesome and like cozy, and it's just like, I feel like this is what people think of when they think of Gilmore Girls as far as vibes and whatnot. I think one of the appeals to Gilmore Girls is that the dialogue feels conversational, like it feels like witnessing a real conversation because of the pauses and the stammering. I think one of people's biggest issues with the show is that we as an audience can see everything, forgetting that the other characters don't see everything that we saw. And here are some comments that I had that contain spoilers. So skip this part if you don't want any spoilers. And if you don't need the spoiler alert, still just stay put and listen. In episode 2, the guy who plays Tom in later seasons sounds just like the construction guy. I never noticed this, but when we meet April in later seasons, she says,
"You want to refill the salt shakers?"
And the pepper, and possibly the sugar. We'll see how the salt and pepper goes.
And in episode 2 of season 2, when Lorelai's questioning Luke, he says,
"But maybe leave the Worcestershire sauce for tomorrow."
I'll see how it goes.
That's such a nice detail. I love this show. In episode 3, my favorite foreshadowing moment is of Luke and Lorelai when they're standing under the huppah. The girl playing a girl at the ball, Libby, she plays one of Logan's sister's friends later on in the seasons. I love that they're calling Luke monosyllabic, and Emily literally calls Jess the same thing. In 209, Lorelai advises Rory not to tell Dean about her kiss with Tristan. Later, Rory tells Lorelai to do the same thing about the night with Christopher when she's dating Luke. Now let's talk about some style moments that I like. In 203, Lorelai's black shirt and brown pants. Also in 203, Rory's blue top, Suki's outfit, and Rory's hair at the drag club. In 204, Rory's messy hair. In 206, Jess's Metallica t-shirt. Lorelai's outfit when she's with Christopher, and Rory's debutante dress. In 208, Lorelai's gold top. And in 209, Lane's hair at the play. So like I said, I am splitting this up into 2 parts. I'm doing half the season in one video and then half the season in another video. I tried to do it all in one and it just kept overwhelming me. So this is just what is working better for me. And I know a lot of you guys have advised me to just, you know, focus on myself and take care of myself and do the content that makes me happy. And I love doing Gilmore Girls content. It's just trying to do an entire season in one video. I don't know how people do it, but I'm telling you, if you don't think YouTube is hard work, if you don't think that it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of focus, you would be wrong. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one. Stay tuned for some moments that I thought were funny.
Love you forever. I want to die when you die.
Oh my, that coffee can is just so high up there. Whatever will I do?
I'll have the Luke skimming Lorelai a migraine meal. But 5 minutes working for Emily Gilmore, and people are begging for Castro.
Macaroons or chocolate praline.
Go back to the cooking room.
And now my mind and my mouth aren't talking. It'll be weeks before we get the boys together again.
Your mouth has a nose?
I'll move in with you.
With a crunch and a zing and a... Hello. I don't think I've ever shared that part of my relationship with you.
You've alluded. You've insinuated. You have tiptoed to the brink of impropriety.
The life we had is gonna morph into this, like, mutation that we could never possibly have conceived.
Like the giant ants in them. I don't remember ever walking around in the buff.
I know one time you did.
Was I 3?
Keeping it silent.
Way down.
Or zipping it shut.
Little tiny mice voices.
I feel like crap on toast.
Ah, yes, but I talked to Serendipity on the phone last night. She feels bad about how she's treated us in the past.
This room made my soul sore. Ugh.
Chit-chat. Stomach-churning, mind-numbing, soul-deadening chit-chat. What do you want to do?
Kill you.
And the horse that wanted to bark.
Oh, what happens at the end?
He dies. 2 beds. Somewhere for me to sleep.
Did I mention I suck?
Yes.
Well, I do.
No. Come visit.
How often are you gonna visit?
I don't know. Every other day. Too much? What's too much?
Please, please.
Emily.
No, I wouldn't want you to take my word for it. I might be delirious from all that tea I've been drinking.
I could be the first editor in the history of the Franklin to introduce a column exclusively devoted to who Biffy's boffing today.
Doogie Howser was a doctor at 16.
Doogie Howser was not real.
How sad for you.
Luke. I heard he controls the weather and wrote the screenplay to Glitter.
Big whoop. Who can't fry an egg?
Think hard. Was he dressed like Sulu?
Hey, kid saw you. No, I didn't. Yes, you did.